So our next speaker, he is Associate Professor Munim from USN. So some of you might have already seen him before, or you can recognize him. So he again is going to come here and he's going to tell us a little bit about the going from a PhD student to working in the academia. Uh, it happens to be that Munim is one of my supervisors, and I always get really, really good advices from him. So yeah, Munim, the floor is yours. You can start
Thank
the
you, Veronica.
presentation.
Thank you. So, my name is Munim, and I'm currently working as Associate Professor of Maritime Logistics at the University of Southeastern Norway. So, my plan for today is that I'm going to share with you what I did in the PhD, what people normally do in the PhD, rather broadly, and then I will provide you how normally the academia works, or at least how I understand it. So there can be different perceptions, and I'm still young, so I may not understand everything completely, but how I understand it so far. And I will have some suggestions for you in that. So that's the plan for today. Before we go into details, so here I would like to share a little bit about my PhD journey. So I started my PhD in 2015 in September. Then I submitted my PhD in June 2018. So about 2 years and 10 months later, something like that. And I defended in August 2018. Then just the next day I joined as assistant professor at UiA, University of Agder. And then in January I joined as associate professor. So I kind of changed from assistant to associate at Agder. And there I was teaching mainly research methods. So my PhD was about maritime logistics, optimization of maritime transportation, international trade, and port activities and things like that. But then I was teaching their research method and supply chain or industrial buying behavior in general. And then I joined USN in April 2019. So one of the things I should mention is that when I was working at UiA at that time, 2018 and 2019, I was working in a temporary contract, so it was not a permanent contract. And these have some implications for you as well, because a lot of the time it may happen that when you finish your PhD, the university you would like to work for, or the positions that you are looking into, the domains that you are looking into, they might not have positions relevant for you. So you might not get a position just when you finish. So you have to look around in different places if there are positions relevant for you. But here I would like to also mention something, that when did I really get my first paper published from the PhD? So my first paper from the PhD was published in March 2018. Almost about 2.5 years later. And I was very depressed actually, because it took me quite a long time to get papers published. And interestingly, the first paper published was the fourth paper of the PhD. And the second paper published was the third paper of the PhD. And my first and second papers of the PhD I published after the PhD. So I had some interesting experience related to that, and we will touch upon that also in this talk. So normally, what do we really do during PhD? Typically, so regardless of focusing on any particular country or context, normally what do we really do, or any particular subject? Normally we do course, and then we do paper. So first 1 year we do course. Then the next 2-3 years we do paper. Then we submit our PhD, and if it's good work, we get the degree. Right? Typically, some people have a 3-year contract, some people have a 4-year contract, but typically for first 1 year and 1.5 year we do the courses, then we start with the papers. Some of us we do teaching, some of us we already have teaching in our agreements. Some of us, we get involved in teaching later on, and which is a good thing normally. So I'd like to also share a bit about what did I do during, I had a 3-year contract, and what did I do during my PhD. So first 1 year, I did only course. All courses for the PhDs are done by the first year. Some courses were at Agder, some courses were in Oxford, in Cambridge, in Oslo, so in different places. But I have a regret actually. I have a regret that I should have taken more courses than NTNU, which I haven't done. But anyway, I did more courses than it was required, and it was great. And then I started with paper, more or less before finishing the courses. I got involved in writing papers, and then I was writing papers for the rest of the time. From the second year onwards, we were highly recommended to go to at least one international conference and present a paper there. But I normally went to about 2 conferences every year and presented PhD related works in the conferences. I realized that this helped me a lot in terms of developing my confidence, in terms of presenting my work, and I could see what people would ask about the research and so on. So that also kind of, I felt like that also prepared me for the defense as well. Also, I was managing something called launch seminars. So I was the coordinator of that. In Agder, we had this situation that every second week, one PhD student have to present what's going on. So at least one of the PhD students, we had like many, we had like 20 all the time in the department. So at least one of them have to present something every second week in the department, and then others give feedback. So, but I presented twice there, but also I was the coordinator of that, who is going to present when. And that also has some implications. I think so, that also had some implications, and I will get back to that later. I also got involved in teaching in the second year, and it was my first teaching experience in Norway, and that helped me a lot actually. And we'll talk more about why teaching is important. And then I was also a visiting research scholar at Copenhagen Business School. So normally I think this is recommended, that to visit one of the reputed universities on your topic for 2-3 months, and then work with some top professors there. So that's also kind of recommended. But when I was at CBS, then I was actually wrapping up my kappa. So I spent more time writing my kappa and submitting my thesis rather than really networking with people there. So that's another regret I have, which I could have improved. But anyway, it went fine. So this is what I did during my PhD. We all do some extra than normally what is typically expected in a PhD, right? But now, when you finish your PhD, when you are there to apply for positions, let's say associate professor positions, what do normally universities ask for? I time to time I look into circulars. I do it for many years now, just to see the different type of skills people are asking for in industry, in academia, so on. So I kind of try to synthesize the information that I see. But before we go to this question, the first thing is that we have to understand there are 2 types of universities in general. Some universities are more teaching focused, some universities are more research focused, and they ask slightly different things. So if we focus on the teaching focused universities, they ask for teaching experience. So in your PhD, if you're teaching, that's great, you have teaching experience. Sometimes you may not have, some universities may not have teaching included in the contract. So in those cases, it is often a good idea to give some lectures in your supervisor's course, or somehow, which I did actually. Before I was teaching a full course, I gave some lectures in my supervisor's course, and then I was teaching a full course. So I think because I was giving lectures in my supervisor's course, that also led me to having a full course later on during my PhD. But if you're having teaching, I think that's a very good thing to have in the portfolio. Some ask for supervision experience, so bachelor's or master thesis supervision. You may not, some universities may not allow you to supervise directly, but then it is often a good idea that you have your supervisor as the main supervisor listed, and you can be the co-supervisor that help some students in the bachelor and master. So then you will also have supervision experience in your portfolio. Sometimes research project applications and grant applications, they are also required kind of some experience with it. So it is often great, like if you have some experience of having some involvement with your supervisor in some grant applications. And then publications, of course. But so publication, yeah, it's for teaching focused universities, it's not the main focus. For teaching focused universities, the main focus will be teaching experience. But on the other hand, if you're looking into research focused universities, then top journal publications will be the highest priority, and then grant and research applications, and then supervision experience, and then teaching experience. And nowadays, if we're looking into any Scandinavian universities, not only Norway but Sweden or Denmark, often they will ask that if you have some Scandinavian language competencies. Okay. But now, where are you actually after the PhD? So most of the cases, those who don't have teaching in their PhD included, you will be on the teaching focused universities, you are less likely to get a job there. But on the research focused universities, if you have publications in top journals, you are highly likely to get positions there. If you have teaching experiences, fantastic. Now you cover 2 points in both cases. Some universities, they try to do both kind of equally. They are in the middle. They want to have people who have teaching experience and also people with research experiences. But it might also happen that, before we go there, so what do you really think about in general in the world? What is the ratio of teaching focused universities and research focused universities? What do you think? Can you write something in chat? What do you think? What would be the percentage of teaching focused universities in general in the world? Is teaching focused more or research focused more? Can you write something in the chat?
So 75% teaching is teaching focus more, teaching 60%, teaching mostly. Only one person said mostly research.
Exactly.
Teaching
so
80%, 20%.
Majority of the universities are teaching focused. If you think of the world, actually, I would say like more than 75%, more than 75-80% universities in the world are teaching focused. Okay. So if you meet the criteria of teaching focused universities, you are very likely to get a position in a teaching focused university. But then you will have to teach also, right? You will have more teaching load. Very few universities, they will have research focus. They're research focused. And then if you're very good at research, then you will get positions in those universities. But it might also happen that in a teaching focused university, you might get a position which is a research focused position. Let's say they are normally teaching focused, but they want to have some people to develop some competences in research. So they might have you in a research focused position. On the other hand, teaching focused universities, they also need people to teach. So they might have some positions which are teaching focused, right? So you have to understand where you want to go. You want to go for a teaching focused university, or you want to go for a research focused university, or you want to have combination of both. So that's kind of, you have to decide what is your priority, and based on that, you will have to develop your competencies. But here, so let's say you got a position. So what really changes after you become an associate professor? So when I remember, like in the very last semester of the PhD, I was working too much maybe, and my wife was complaining that I'm always working. So I was telling her that, just let me finish the PhD. After that, you will have all the time. And then after I started my associate professorship or like assistant professorship first, I got more busy, and so I had like more or less I have less time. I had less time for everything. Okay, it's just becomes difficult to manage time. And normally, if I'm not teaching, I'm always in a meeting. So, and sometimes there are 2-3 meetings at the same time. So it's really difficult to manage time, particularly if you want to write papers. During the PhD, normally we get really good in writing papers, especially in the later years. We can write papers rather quickly, and if we have the data and if we have the experimental setups. But if we have some free time, 1-2 weeks of free time to write. But when you are in a faculty position, normally you will never have 1-2 weeks of time, free time continuously to write papers. That's, in my experience, that's gone forever. So I have to manage time within this, but also the role changes. Now, I as I understand it, is that rather than I writing the papers, I should focus more on bringing projects, having PhD students, help them in doing the research, and have kind of guide them in writing the papers. So my main role kind of likely to change to supervision rather than I writing it myself. But I still try to write at least one single author papers every year, so that I am up to date with what's going on in my field. So that's something I try to maintain. But normally the role kind of changes here. And also here, it has become normal in Norway and worldwide, kind of, that you do a postdoc or work as assistant professor for a couple of years before becoming an associate professor. So that's, normally a couple of years of postdoc or assistant professor. That's very normal now. But also in some universities in Norway, they also introduced the trainer track system, which has been very common in the USA. But recently, like, I have seen some positions in NTNU, Oslo, and NHH. They introduced, for some positions, they mentioned this tenure track system, where you are hired on a temporary contract for 3 or 4 years, and then you get some goals to finish. So you have to, let's say, publish in this level of journals, 3-4 papers. You have to bring this amount of projects and so on. Then after 3-4 years, you are evaluated based on the performance, and then you either get a permanent position or not. So that's also kind of becoming common in Norway. But anyway, so overall, I try to synthesize everything that is going on in academia in my knowledge, and I try to call it a 6 P's of academia. So here, first is publication, second is pedagogy, that is teaching, and then you have project funding, then you have PhD supervision, but I mean supervision in general, and then paperwork, administration, and then the 6th one is profile. Okay. Now I will talk a little bit more about each of them. So when I talk about publication, we normally try to publish in top journals, but also consider trade-offs. It may happen that sometimes we try to publish only in top journals, which may take a lot of time, and then when we finish our PhD, we have no publications. Better would be that we kind of balance. We send a couple of papers in top journals, couple of papers in decent journals, which are good but may not be the highest ranked, and then we have at least something when we finish our PhD. So particularly if you want to go for a research focused university or research focused position, then you need to have publications. Otherwise, it is very difficult to get a position in those kind of universities or positions. So here, normally, it's good to have a strategy. As I mentioned, my first publication came after 2.5 years into the PhD. That's because I sent papers. I sent my first paper after 1.5 years into the PhD, and that paper was under review for more than 1 year, and then they just rejected the paper. So I got my first review feedback after more than 1 year. It was like 14 months or something like that. So to avoid this kind of situation, it's always a good idea to, let's say, I sent my first paper in a high-level journal, second paper in an OK journal. But I sent my first 2 papers in very high-level journals, and both of them took more than 1 year to get reviews, and it was I was a bit disappointed there. But anyway, so it's always good to have a strategy, and always try to work with people better than you, at least most of the time. Sometimes we work with people as good as us, sometimes we work with people not as good as us, which is also important. It's not only that we get better, we have to also have people around us to improve, because we were also not very good at some point in time, and then some people helped us to grow. So we have to take care of these situations as well. But normally try to work most of the time with people better than you, then you improve more. Pedagogy, normally it's a good approach to teach at least 1 course every year, at least one course in your PhD. So if you can do that, that's great. But after PhD, when you get a position, at least 1 course every year. It's always good to try to teach in all levels, bachelor, master, PhD if possible. And recently it has become very common to do university pedagogy courses, which is often required in Norway nowadays to get promotion from normally if you're associate professor, to get a promotion from associate to professor, you have to do these courses, or some universities are also asking for these courses when they hire you in the first place. So it might be a good idea to find a course at your university and take a course on university pedagogy. For projects, it's good to be part of grant applications. You don't have to take the lead during the PhD. You can be part of your supervisor's application. When you're done with the PhD, you can initiate grant applications, or you can just go for like a small, when you are in the PhD, you can also initiate like a small grant applications. It is great to have some supervision experience if you can do some bachelor, master supervision. But after the PhD, it becomes important to also supervise PhD students. And for paperwork, normally positions like program coordinator, committees, subcommittees, program managers, etc. These kind of positions, normally it's common in academia that research-focused people tries to avoid this. But this is not really a waste of time. I realize that this kind of position really help us to build organizational management and leadership skills. So they are actually good value addition as well. And in the end of the day, it would be nice to build also a profile. Okay, it's not only doing the PhD, but if you kind of build a profile, then you'll be more competitive in the job market in the end, and as a researcher also. So normally ideas could be to become internal or external examiners for courses, for thesis, and then present at workshops and conferences, be a visiting scholar in a reputed university, review for journals, guest edit a special issue in a good journal, and also be on academic social networks like ResearchGate, update your conference presentations, journal presentations, things like that on ResearchGate. Share your, let's say, when you publish a paper, very technical paper, but explain it in very simple words, write a blog post about it, share it on your LinkedIn, these simple words, so that more people can understand what you have done in the paper. So doing things like that, this helps you to build a profile in general. So these are the 6 P's of academia. I try to summarize here more or less the aspects of academia that helps us become associate professor and professor in the later time. And before I finish, some words of wisdom. So here, because when you are in the end and you want, so sometimes it happens that people wait until like they defend their PhD to start looking for jobs. So normally I think that's not really a good idea. I would recommend that when you are in the second year, start checking Job Norway regularly, just to see what kind of positions are coming in what frequencies they're coming in, what kind of requirements they're asking, just to introduce yourself with requirements and some of the things you might be able to do in the next 1 or 2 years when you'll be finishing your PhD. Join like list servers or mailing lists. So for different research groups, there are some mailing lists. Normally, some conference organizers managed by conference organizers or like research teams. So there they share like these job positions time to time. So if you're subscribed on those list servers or mailing list, then you will get notifications. So that helps to be updated about what positions are coming in. And normally I would recommend that you start looking for positions when you have the full draft of the thesis ready. Don't wait until you defend. So if you don't have something at hand, if you already have something at hand, if you already are working in a university, or if you're already working in a company and so on, then you don't have to look for anything. But otherwise, start looking when you have the full draft ready. Don't wait until you submit your until you defend your thesis. And I think also it's a good idea if you can target submitting 2-3 months earlier than your expiry date of the contract. So then when you submit after these 2-3 months, you will have your, most likely it takes 3 months or something like that to have your thesis defended. So the thing is, I have seen people who thought, okay, I'm going to take 1 more month than my contract time. And then I will do some final touch and this and that, and then I will quickly write the CUP and submit. But I have seen some people, they never submit because they thought of this taking this 1 month. 1 month never ended. One of the reasons could be that when your contract expires, you will not get salary and you will be really demotivated. You will not be motivated enough to work on the PhD, and you will already look for other financial sources, other jobs and so on. So it might happen that then there was a little bit left, but you never submitted your thesis. So it's always good to really target to submit your thesis 2-3 months earlier than your contract expiry date. I would recommend that find a mentor. Sometimes your supervisor could be a great mentor. Sometimes it may not be the case. Then you find other mentors. In academia, I feel like if we want to grow in academia, it's really important to have a mentor. And maybe not only one. I have 3-4 very good mentors who help me in different ways. So maybe one mentor cannot really guide you on everything. So it's already good to have 2-3 mentors. And have you thought about transferable skills? So what I mean by transferable skills, and why I mentioned transferable skills, because a lot of the times we want to get a job in academia, but the number of job positions openings in academia are limited. We are graduating many more PhDs than we have positions available. So some of the PhDs, even though they want to work in academia, it might not be possible to get a position in academia. So in those kind of situations, they are likely to work in different roles in different organizations. And those cases, transferable skills can be really important. So normally transferable skills help you to improve yourself on a personal level, and these skills also will help you to become better professional regardless of what career path you choose. And those skills include like communication skills, problem solving skills, team working, conflict management, networking, project management, entrepreneurship, etc. So for example, as in the very early slide I mentioned, I was managing this lunch
Munim,
seminar.
we have run out of time, so if you can wrap up,
okay.
So we can have one or two questions.
Okay, yeah, just 1 minute. Okay, yeah, so yeah, you get the idea what we mean by transferable skills. Just to finish, one more thing. Normally, before you go for the positions, you have to defend your PhD. And one important thing is that don't take your trial lecture lightly. It might happen that because you haven't put enough effort in trial lecture or haven't prepared in trial lecture, you might fail in PhDs. Sometimes when dealing with opponents during the defense, you can always argue with during the defense, but sometimes like arguing too much or like misbehaving with the opponents can also lead to failing in the PhDs. And also sometimes if you haven't presented in conferences or with lunch seminars or seminars in general, and you are first presenting your work in the PhD defense, one of the things the opponents might have in mind that whether you have done the work. Okay, so be aware of this kind of situations, that ghostwriting, if situations might come up if someone else was writing the work for you, so this can also lead to fail in PhD. So these three things I mentioned because in Norway normally when you are accepted for defense, then normally you don't fail your defense, okay, but these three things can lead to failing in defense, so just so you know. Thank you very much. Sorry that I have taken a bit longer time, and yeah, if you have any questions.